I'm like an hour on that now. How did it used to take me 3 days?
Mm-hmm.
That's the modular advantage every single time, if well managed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's transferable to what we were talking about before with youth training.
Yeah.
There is no faster way I've seen in 3 countries of active field work for
Mm-hmm.
training young carpenters.
Welcome to Powered by People, the podcast where we dive into the stories of the people behind thriving businesses. I'm your host, Wendy Pauls, and today I had the pleasure of getting to know Gene and Kayla Meredith, two remarkable entrepreneurs with a vision that goes far beyond business. Together, they co-founded Grand River Modular, an Indigenous-led company focused on building affordable, high-quality modular homes with a long-term, community-centered mindset. In this episode, we talk about their personal paths, the challenges of breaking through outdated policies, and how they're using modular housing to make a real impact. You'll also hear how their backgrounds, from figure skating to construction, shaped their approach to business and leadership. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. Let's dive in. So, Kayla, with your name being Kayla Meredith, like two first names, do people ever call you Meredith?
All the time. Yep.
You
Yep.
know, yeah. What about you? Actually, Gene, do they do the same
Lifelong
thing?
story, yeah. I think the
Mhm.
90s in New Zealand were just a weird time for naming boys, I guess.
Yeah. The reason that I ask, so my husband is Kevin Pauls, and even though it's Pauls, not Paul, he gets called Paul all the time.
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy made life
Mm.
difficult when it first came out. We'll put it that
And
way.
what? And why is that?
Well, the main character is called Meredith, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So everybody, that's just in everybody's head, and you would get called that all the time. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I'd like to go back and find out kind of from each of you a little bit about your upbringing. Where did you grow up? Do you have siblings? So, I don't know if one of you wants to go first. Let's capture some of
You're it.
this. All
Okay.
right, Kayla.
All right. So I was born and raised in Kitchener.
Okay.
So I spent most of my life here. I have two brothers, one older and one younger, right in the
Mhm.
middle. I grew up as a figure skater, so that was pretty prominent in my life. And my brothers played baseball and hockey, so we were very much a sporting family.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the University of Waterloo to get an English degree. And then
Okay.
once I graduated, I went to New Zealand, to Christchurch for Teachers College.
Okay. Is that where you met?
That's where we met.
Okay.
Bingo.
All right.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was out pulling 90-hour weeks, throwing together systems on farms throughout the South Island at the time.
Okay. Yes. And was it love at first sight?
It was Indian dinner,
Yeah.
lamb seguala at first sight, I believe, and then yeah, a lot of mutual values. That was sort of
Mm.
what kicked things off there.
Mm. Okay. So you had a connection right out of the gate
Yeah,
with some commonalities and kind of a friendship that maybe developed?
I'd
Yeah,
say
I'd say
so.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that happened pretty much after we met was I came home. So I graduated and then
Mm-hmm.
had planned on coming home for Christmas because that's their holiday break.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I was actually back in Canada that I got a job offer in New Zealand. So we
Oh,
didn't know if we were going to be continuing long term,
I see.
but I went back and I was there. So I was there for 3 more years after that.
As a lot
Okay.
of carpenters that get homes built, though, like I was pretty action oriented there, so I'd had
Mm-hmm.
her stuff moved into my apartment while she was at home, and then I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna ship it over once she found out. The job was pretty guaranteed. New Zealand's still desperate for teachers. We're dealing
Okay.
with much the same here currently.
Mm-hmm. So then when did you both end up over here?
2018, March 15th, I believe, and
Okay.
Kayla was here 3 months prior,
Mm-hmm.
and our
Mm-hmm.
dog Ava 2 months and a week before that.
Okay. Yes. And you have children or a child? Two children?
Multiple.
We have
Multiple. How many?
two and one that's due in about a month. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah. And what are their ages?
We've got a daughter, 5, going on
Mm-hmm.
6 in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Wee fella, he's 3 at the moment, turning 4 at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3, boy or girl.
Not sure.
Ourselves and our kids have just
Surprise.
been calling it Charlie for near 9 months now. That's
Amazing.
coming March 22nd or tomorrow. We're not sure. Neither is the midwife, so we'll see.
Oh my goodness. It could happen while we're on the call.
That,
Let's hope
that would be pretty good PR, but
That
I
would
don't
be
know.
very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's a busy time of life. And I mean, we're going to get into that when we get into what you're currently doing. And I want to know how you're balancing all these things. Um, I want to know, though, what you each wanted to be when you were young. So, Kayla, did you want to be a figure skater? Was that like the dream when you were little? Or did you know that was more of a like a side thing or a passion or hobby?
I still coach. I
Okay.
currently am a figure skating coach. It's really hard for me to leave the ice. I
Mm-hmm.
coached all the way through university, so it's always a second job for me. But it's not what I didn't want to be a figure skater when I grew up. I've always wanted to either. I was kind of given two options. It was to either be a teacher or a nun. So I knew I wasn't going to go down the religious path, so I
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the
became a teacher.
father-in-law's old school. So,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Teacher or none. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
And what about you, Gene?
And like childhood dreams for career.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the passions were always film, music, entertainment sort of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, thinking back on it, it's more there was always an intrinsic drive to try and make people feel better or good or happy or
Mm-hmm.
looked after. So my upbringing's not a completely fun story, but mostly silver lining. Solo
Mm-hmm.
mom, right?
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I probably grew up a little bit too quick, and then not being housed was a big feature throughout, and
Mm-hmm.
realizing how much I enjoyed physical work as well, mid to late teens. Hospitality was the introduction there. My dad just kicked my butt into a kitchen handing job when I hit 13, I think. But construction just sort of took a hold over
Mm-hmm.
time. I've done pretty well in several companies and then moved over to Canada and just work, work, work. I think I started
Mm-hmm.
work 23 hours after landing here about 7
Wow.
odd years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then just prior to launching GRM, it really clicked for me the why behind what I enjoy about building.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm at now, that childhood dream, it's really just formed that I've mastered something that could have made my mum's life a lot better and mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's millions of people going through that while we're having this interview. So if there's
Yes.
action that can be taken,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm alone there. Every
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood's got mums and
Mm-hmm.
dads that are experts in their industries.
Yeah.
It's just getting back to clubbing together and focusing on each other a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yes, so your upbringing, we'll see the connection for the current passion. Are you able to speak a little bit more to that? How long? What it was like? Was this when you were in New Zealand? You were unhoused for a period of time?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in New Zealand, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say
Yep.
from birth to age 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
It was renovictions every 2 or so years, couch surfing on like good friends and aunties and uncles that weren't related. Yeah, the stories of what my mother went through are
Mm-hmm.
not something we have time for on this, but
Sure.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
testament to, I mean, solo mums are superhumans. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah.
science even argues with that these days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure. Sure. And
but
I'm
it's
sure now,
exactly what
just
you'd expect, right? I'll go into
yeah.
depth on
Yeah.
it if it's
Uh-huh.
relevant to the person I'm
Okay.
talking to for giving them a boost,
Mm-hmm.
but you'd have to
Yes.
be a bit targeted with what you want to know. It's a
Yeah.
18-year
Yeah.
story there. So
Yeah. Yeah. I bet how you feel your appreciation for your mom, I expect has grown even as you've become a parent yourself.
She's currently full-time caregiving for my grandfather, who's a
Okay.
Royal New Zealand Air Force squadron leader, retired into
Mm,
elderly care, worked for
mm,
free for
mhm.
over a decade when the government cut the funding. So that's what
Wow.
she's up to, and happily
Mm.
married for 17 years, doing
Oh,
exceptionally well. I'm a big fan of
wonderful.
the
Mm.
theory that the more life puts you through, it's how you respond. It can actually turn
Yes.
into an advantage for being there for others, which
Yeah.
my mother is a great example of.
Yes, definitely. Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay, so for people that are, watching, listening, we've been kind of alluding to things, but they probably don't know where we're going. So bring us up to speed to what you're currently working on, Grand River Modular. What is it? Kind of give us a bit of an overview, and maybe how did you go from, moving here and just working hard to this?
Um, so actually, it happened shortly after we had our second child, so Silas. Um, I was on mat leave for the first half,
Hmm.
and Gene was working at a modular company, and he
Okay.
wasn't
Hmm.
really happy with where he was, and I was missing work. So we agreed that we would split the maternity leave, and so he took paternity leave for the second half, um, starting. It was just after
I don't know.
February, I think.
Yeah.
We swapped in February.
Yeah, it would have been near the end of Feb.
And it
Yeah.
was shortly after that he told me, "Oh, I've registered a business. That you're a business owner." Okay.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so
Okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't. We didn't
Huh?
really have a lot of planning that went into it prior to. It was just something that was kind of reactionary.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So what we were starting to see in our landscape around us, and this was during COVID, was that there were issues with housing and getting housing to people and finding affordable solutions. And rentals were going crazy and prices were going higher. And we were getting concerned because we now had two kids that
Yep.
we didn't think could ever buy a home. And we didn't want that for them.
I mean, Kayla's trained in lesson planning and a plethora of other things. I'm trained in estimating for my industry. It was
Okay. Hmm.
looking at them, crunching the numbers a bit from like the last half a decade of stats,
Yeah.
realizing what their housing options looked like later on,
Hmm.
realizing that was everybody's in their generations. And just not trusting that any of the employers I've had to date or who I was working for at the time were doing anything about it.
Hmm.
Numbers on paper.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, we got this current house. We had to get it. It was deemed unlivable, so we got a
Hmm.
private loan with ridiculous compound on it for 3 months.
Okay. Hmm.
50 grand budget as a temporary gift from family.
Hmm.
16-hour days for 3.5 months straight to get it
Hmm.
renoed. And
Yeah.
then we got it appraised and it came in at 845, like near doubled in value in 3 months. And we
Wow.
had that reaction I just saw on your
Yeah.
face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what triggered us looking at our kids and starting to do the math on things. We're like, it's not okay, right?
Hmm.
You, me, or
Hmm.
anyone. If we're housed and comfortable right now, um, normal path of least resistance. Sit
Hmm.
comfy and celebrate. Wait till it's been 30 years and see where your grandchildren are at. History can teach us a lot on that sort of thing. So we figured huge risk. We have no means or funds to do this with, but there's no choice. So let's go. Um,
Hmm.
that was more or less
Yeah.
the decision
Wow.
making process.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kayla, I can sort of see how some of maybe, Gene's struggles in his early life um, can be where he's pulling some of this sort of passion and drive from. Okay. What about you? Was it hard for you to get on board? Was it easy for you to get on board? Are you more risk averse?
I'm very risk averse.
Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, yeah,
Yeah.
she got there quick, eh?
But
Yeah,
the one
that's
thing
good.
that was kind of a draw for me, living in New Zealand was really when I first started to appreciate that I was Indigenous, and
Hmm.
have an Indigenous culture,
Hmm.
and I have those values that live within me. But it wasn't something that I could ever bring to Canada because it wasn't really celebrated here, prior to my arrival. So once I came back in 2018, it was like a whole changed country. And so Gene and I talked about having this as an Indigenous-led company and instilling a lot of those values. So really thinking about 7 generations ahead. And what can we do for those children that are going to come to help them? And what can we do for the land so that in 7 generations we still have a space for these people to continue to live? We talked a lot about circular living. So how can we live and work as equals with the land and the resources that we have with our clients and with the people that we're going to be pulling, asking for funding from, and all of these things. So we really kind of approached this from a different angle and thought less about how do we make money and more about how do we help people. And so that's kind of like our biggest focus is helping people and bringing affordable housing.
100%. And that's something Kayla's really taught me. But with her culture, her mom's taught me as well. Like it comes through, and her grandmother. That story is even rougher than mine in terms of an upbringing. But it really punches in that if you bank your efforts on a goal or something material, you name it, you don't have much to carry you through to it. And if things come up that blockade you, you're likely to give up. If you're banking it on the reason behind the journey for doing something and what you want to achieve that's going to just happen repeatedly, the work hurts. It's not enjoyable, 90% pain plus, but it's worth every second, right? So I think it's just the best way to live.
Yeah, having a really strong why.
Yep.
You're in touch with your why, and it pulls you toward it. Yeah. But yeah, I like that you pointed out, though, that doesn't mean the work itself is easy. I'm sure all the challenges are still present for sure. So I'm curious with the some of the things you're talking about, the 7 generations, the Indigenous values. Was this something you were already aware of, even though, like you said, in Canada, prior to you leaving, that wasn't, top of mind, but it became more significant to you upon your return?
It was aware, but keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something that you kind of intrinsically feel like it's like a value that you've always held. But now that more and more people are becoming aware of it, it's something that we can talk about and share, and hopefully part of that concept of reconciliation is learning to live and work together in a good way.
Yeah.
And so these are the values that we want to put forward.
Yeah, so, it took me years to even half wrap my head around the environment versus Indigenous and First Peoples up here. It's just not that way in New Zealand. Well, we don't have time to go into that, but I highly recommend people look into how our cultures have integrated and worked with one another. There's a reason we're a small rock in the middle of the ocean, and you've heard of us, and it's not because we do good dairy products, I assure you.
Yes. So how do the Indigenous values inform your mission as a company? How did that unfold? How do you do that?
I think so. The 2 that we really focus on is the 7 generations and the circular living. So they're really, we don't make any decision lightly without thinking 7 generations ahead and considering the impacts that we're going to make. So we've been in our designs and in our conversations and in the products that we're creating, we really put that as our focus.
Yep.
And it kind of just everything falls underneath it. So because we are being so mindful of the resources and being sustainable and respecting the land, that we are focusing on that 7th generation.
Yeah, we can draw on Kayla's heritage. That's a resource most businesses wouldn't have or value if it was in front of them, but it's extremely advantageous, even from a business standpoint, to look at something and say, what's the right thing to do here? And then just plan out, if we go this road, what impact will it have on the people after us? If we go the other road, same question. You often come to cool things like our HR systems based off the medicine wheel, and then you expand from that, and then elders start chipping in and mentors come, and you realize an apprentice you've taken on has never had a workplace where they can smudge and be spoken to and treated in that way, but it still works viably as a for-profit construction company. And that's not a concept I think either of us are intelligent enough to come up with. It's a case of following a philosophy, getting pushed down some really challenging roads because of it.
Sure.
But I think at the other end of that struggle, it's like, wow, this was a smart thing to do the whole time. It's almost like they knew how to run things for a few thousand years here before the boats, right?
It's almost like there's some wisdom there or something.
Yeah.
Wisdom, experience, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and teaching people that, like, if you're not Indigenous, you can celebrate along with people. You don't have to worry about verbiage and appropriation. Build a few homes together. You'll get each other at the end of that. That's hands-on reconciliation. So learn a word or two. Ask them if they want to learn a word or two from your heritage, that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thing. I
Oh.
mean, Canadians are proud of where they came from. I've met several that are Scottish and they're referring to one great great grandparent. It's the exact same concept as what we're really
Sure.
trying to punch through for some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading, I think maybe on your website, I'm not sure, but that you also do some training programs for Indigenous workers. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so we're ministry approved for Red Seals.
Yeah, our goal is to hire Indigenous apprentices
Okay.
and give them as many opportunities as possible. So we've worked with a few associations that have provided us with some youth that we do short-term placements with. We've had a few apprentices that have stuck on longer with us. The idea is we want to take on any youth that is Indigenous that is willing to learn, teach them what we can, and provide them with the skills and the tools that they need. And sometimes they don't stay with us. They return back to their own spaces and places, which is great because they're taking that knowledge with them.
Yep.
So we're hoping to expand that when we grow as a company and make a lot of connections with the local reserves and with other communities as well that are really interested in bringing modular to their communities.
Yep. And again, there's a business side to it. The difference in our model versus some of the other models and attempts we've seen in terms of reduce unemployment and the rest, it's missing autonomy, genuine autonomy. So when we hire a youth or non-youth coming in, it's a case of, right, let's get you registered so you're on that pathway for certification, because that's a guarantee of set payment, whether you're here or anywhere in the Commonwealth, to be honest. So that's a necessary step. And then it's not a case of you're working for the company and have to stay with it. Like Kayla was saying, the model we're shooting for is that any construction company can come in, take a look, interview our apprentices, offer them a career path, no sign-off fee, but you can guarantee there will be something binding that if you do not complete their qualification and it's not on them, you'll be paying an extortionate amount as a penalty. These systems, because we're not targeting profit from it, it enables it to cycle indefinitely. So your pipeline with set block programs, always pulling in grants and all the rest, this is no, come in, work hard, teach us, we'll teach you. And then where do you want to grow? And then just putting up the flag to everyone else saying, hey, we have these amazing people that are in training with us. Do you have the career they're looking for as well? But it's running as a for-profit the whole time. So self-sustaining, replicable, any company could be doing what we're doing here. It's just about thinking less in the short term.
So tell me about your, is it, I want to pronounce it right, is it Menisi? How do you pronounce it, the model?
Menisi, yeah, means
Menisi?
island.
Okay. Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, talk about that. That's your, is that your first sort of product or
Not quite.
No.
Not quite. Okay.
We have the water unit, which is maple tree, because that's considered, was it the grandfather of all trees, right?
It's a very important tree in our nation
Okay.
and in our communities.
Yeah, and
So that was the first one.
yeah. So
Okay.
we developed that prior to having resources. We're just running renovations to self fund rather than going for grants and that sort of
Okay.
thing
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And then when we got to the end of that process, we landed with, I think, somewhere around 4 mil in IP, which is fairy dust to us because people can't live in IP. But we reached that point, and at the same time, we'd learned enough to realize the regulatory system here is not ready for that yet. That's where you've seen a lot of the multi-billion-dollar attempts doing great on marketing and then disappearing in a big hurry. We clicked to that. And then the Manisi model was us sitting down saying, right, if we know there's going to be too many barriers for like getting that far forward, I mean, other countries are already doing it, but we know our leadership's not looking anywhere else. They want to
Mm-hmm.
invent.
Mm-hmm.
What can we action now? And can we
Mm-hmm.
get something that's really high quality of living for occupancy, like a
Mm-hmm.
good solid home?
Yeah.
And how low cost could we get that? And that was
Mm-hmm.
the whole driving, like we had those two factors for developing it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been quite the process for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have me and Kayla replicate a housing summit for you here, but there are some barriers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the ones that get discussed. It's
Okay.
usually the people discussing them, to be honest. So
So this model, you did your first one. Was the first one built last year, like in
yeah,
2024?
uh,
Okay.
yes, early in the year we wrapped up the first, like the prototype model.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we've gotten it through to being fully pre-permitted for Zone 2, all of Ontario.
Okay.
So as per the pre-approved design housing catalogs you've heard on the media, only
Okay.
we pulled it off and it didn't cost 20 billion. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, that's we're established in a facility,
Mm-hmm.
locking in buyers, but
Yep.
a lot outside of the construction as well. I mean, education's a huge focus for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what do you want people to know?
Because I came to this without any real knowledge of what modular was, other
Mm-hmm.
than you get a house delivered to your backyard.
Yeah.
So I didn't really fully understand what modular was when we really started to dig into these, the company and the concepts that we were going with. And over time, it was that realization that modular is not a certain type of home.
bingo.
Modular is the process in which the house is being built. So Gene explained it to me in the most simplest of terms. Imagine the car industry. So
Yes.
instead of having someone come to your driveway to build your car is getting built offsite and brought to you completed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on an assembly line so that things can happen quicker. It's in a controlled environment. Everything is there. Products are available for the builders. Everything is ready to go. So it just makes things a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier. And when it's coming to you, it's usually a very well built home because of the factors surrounding what modular does.
Yep.
So that's the one big thing I think that we're really hoping people can understand is that modular is not a style of home, it's just the process in which it's being built.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so does it make it less than or greater? It's just a home that's brought to you in a different way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the house
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting in now could be modular or could not be modular. Had it
Mm-hmm.
been done a while back,
Mm-hmm.
the concept here is pretty straightforward, but we're fighting a massive stigma in terms of park model and trailers and prefab things getting glued
Okay.
together. This
Mm.
is the same as where you're sitting. The
Mm-hmm.
only difference is your framework was probably done in the rain and other conditions,
Yes.
and your house is probably not strong enough to get picked up and put on a truck
Mm-hmm.
and probably cost a significant amount more to build. So those are the
Mm-hmm.
advantages.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, the modular industry in Ontario and unfortunately quite a few parts in the US, it seems to just be this part of the world struggling at the moment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we're allowing predetermined things of it being an invention to stigmatize and get in the way of it. It's also
Mm-hmm.
opening the doors for, I don't know if I'm allowed to say BSers in this interview. You're going to bleep it out.
Sure.
Yeah, it opens the door for
Yeah.
bullshitters.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
not succeeded to the dream they have as inventors or
Mm.
Elon Musks of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they pour into countries that are just realizing the next logical step for all of construction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an opportunity for them to finally be the first.
Mm-hmm.
And we've dealt with the brunt of that because it seems councils and the rest have been quite easily convinced for the amount of money that's been sent to billionaires,
Mm-hmm.
many not even from the area, which to me is a problem. If you're moving to a country, I've been around the world a little.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good manners to really respect where you're moving to and make a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, with what we've developed now, it's a solid home,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and it's just the first stepping stone for us. So we've started with ADUs because it's the quickest, easiest solution. Doesn't require new land development or new property purchases. So yeah,
Yeah.
just ticks
Yeah.
all the boxes, I guess.
We really wanted to focus on multi-generational as well.
Yeah,
That's a huge
Mm-hmm.
aspect.
big time.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
rely on my family a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if
So do I.
I could have them on site, it would make my life a lot easier. So
Mm-hmm.
this makes it a possibility.
Yeah.
And so we really thought about that, and we wanted to make sure that the products that we were creating would be something that I would want my granny to live in.
Okay.
So they're built
Mm-hmm.
with love
Yeah.
and with thought, and the people that would be coming into it are living in a space with dignity.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
So is there a spot that people can see one? Like, do you have like a model unit that people can come and view,
yes,
that
yeah,
sort of thing? Yes. Okay.
yeah.
That's really
We've got
cool.
a facility out in Brantford,
Okay.
and a viewing unit out the back, and then we take people through the current builds on the floor.
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not a large space. You
Uh-huh.
probably gathered from our origin story. Now we're very
Uh,
step by step here.
yep.
But
Yep.
no, we're capable of 1 to 2 units completely. Like this is a single dwelling home, start to finish, all the bells and whistles per month.
Okay.
It all
Okay.
comes down to
How does that
choice.
compare? How does that compare to a traditional build, would you say? Like
Well,
time wise?
people like to do percentage ratings. There's a
Mm-hmm.
ton of discussion on it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the industry leaders in Europe and one rock star down in Pittsburgh call it doing the modular math. But the simplest way to frame it to just get past it's case by case for that sort of
Okay.
question to an
Mm-hmm.
extent,
Sure.
but it's
Mm-hmm.
faster, okay?
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
best way I find to frame it is say you just bought a new site and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to build a house on it. Which is going to save you more time? Excavate, get your servicing and foundations built, and then start building the house, or excavate, start getting the foundations built, and the house shows up because it's been built at the same time.
Yeah,
When we
yeah, yeah.
frame it like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a no-brainer if
Mm.
executed properly by
Mm-hmm.
people with construction experience. That's
Sure.
what's been lacking, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. But
Yeah, yeah. And what about comparing, say, cost from
yeah,
typical?
exactly
How
what
how
you'd
much
expect.
how much cheaper per se would
You
it be?
can save 20% or up to 50%,
Okay.
or it can end up costing more. It
Mm-hmm.
really depends on the site and the build. So that's something we always assess for clients. And there have been cases where, due to site conditions, it's no, do most of it, if not all of it,
Mm-hmm.
conventional site build.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
for, most properties, it just makes sense and saves cost in terms of the process efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how tradey you want to go on that question, but the
I'm
repetition
like,
is a huge
yes.
factor.
Okay. Yes. Yes. That makes
Time is
sense.
money
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
a like pretty universal expression,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and that's where modular has conventional beat. So
Mm-hmm.
if I were renovating a condo or building a house on site, I'm unloading material from a truck, I'm getting it to the
Mm-hmm.
right location, setting up tools, packing down tools.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it in a modular environment, you show up to workstation 1B, your
Mm-hmm.
exact quantity of drywall, and some of the really good facilities at the moment shows up pre-cut exactly for the unit.
Wow. Yeah.
And then for the repetition factor, if you've already done that room 20 times over,
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, yeah, think of it like apply it to your own career field. If you can think back on a task that you do once every 6 months while you're training for your field, and then when you're in it and you get hired for a specific role where you just do that, and you think back and say, wow, I'm like an hour on that now. How did it used to take me 3 days? That's the modular advantage every single time, if well managed. And that's transferable to what we were talking about before with youth training. There is no faster way I've seen in 3 countries of active field work for training young carpenters. You still need the infield for the problem solving and critical thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
But in terms of the skills, best practice, muscle memory, I've seen people with no prior experience get better at drywall in the space of 6 months than people I've worked with that have apprenticed in drywall for 4 years. There's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah.
It's
No,
nice not to
I can
freeze in the
see
winter
it.
as well. So,
Exactly. So what is your focus now? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get the word out? Are you trying to educate people? So talk about that.
I think we're trying to build as many homes as we can.
We've kind of looked at what the immediate need is, and so we've started to make some adjustments. We've realized emergency shelters are becoming a necessity that we really, really need. So we've looked at designing some of those.
And that was asking that 7-gen question again, right? In the meeting, it came down to, well, our kids and their kids are going to read about right now. And what do we want them to read about us? So
great. Yes. So you asked yourself that question, and then what was your answer?
We
What do you
better
want them to read?
call our architect and engineer and get some designs together here. And even though like high chance of being denied or no action from leadership, at least develop the product, make the offer, and know that we've tried to make sure not as a permanent solution. It's a band-aid, right? But all of the arguments and debates around it, what's the point of that? And would they be happening if the people on both sides of the argument were currently sleeping in a tent? That's where we're thinking on it. So all politics aside, it's about what will our kids read about. Oh, yeah, great granddad and grandma there. They tried really hard to get people in homes that were intense at the time. It doesn't matter whether we succeed or fail. We have to try, was the consensus with our teams.
Yeah. That's that approach is reminding me of one of the habits in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind, right? I love that. I think that's a great way to think about making decisions and next steps, is that very thing. So that's just, you've phrased it in a different way. But yeah, what do we want our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids to read about us? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those, like the very popular self-help books and directives and guides, now you're YouTubers on all fronts. That's, some of them have come up with it by themselves from going through some rough stuff and then hitting success, right? But in all cases, look to any older cultures.
Yes.
You'll see verbatim matches as soon as you slow down to listen what the words are saying.
Yes. Yeah. Wisdom. It's just, it gets passed on. It lives on. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What haven't we touched on that you want to about your current project or where you're headed?
Well, our
I don't want to
backyard
miss anything.
homes, we're looking to get those sold and built. And then I guess we didn't touch on, we've got our milestones set, and when those milestones get hit, I think that's what you were trying to ask with the other questions.
Yes.
So it's like, yes, but all of that stuff's been put back seat. We need to earn the working capital first.
Okay.
And then get it used. I believe that's the circular living concept, right?
Yeah.
So we're
While you
for
brought,
profit, but money
yes.
is a tool, not a bloody collector's item. And that's,
yes.
I don't. We could touch definitely on the advantages of having a female Indigenous boss in the trade space. I'm always happy to talk about that,
Please do. Yes.
but I don't feel the need to spearhead
Okay.
that because I don't really qualify, right? But
Huh?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Kayla, do you want to
Um,
add to that?
it's definitely been interesting being in the role that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people expect to see me or hear of me, or when Gene tells people I have to check in with my boss and
Hmm.
she,
Mm.
and so as soon
Mm.
as they find out that I'm a female, um, I think there's always going to be some stigma tied to being a female in the industry, to being Indigenous and working in the industry. But we're starting to see people understand that it's actually helpful. It's beneficial. It's bringing a different mindset. It's bringing different values.
Hmm.
And so our company is still thriving after 3 years, whereas most other startup companies at this point have probably not succeeded.
Hundreds from
Mm-hmm.
the last benchmarking study we did. Yep, it's
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's case studies popping up now, and those are the companies that are sustaining, and I guess you'd call it innovating,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more. I mean, if I'm in charge, I'm gonna try and hit something with a hammer to get it to fit. Kayla steps back and has perspective, and it's. I think for the construction industry, a good message to keep in mind is if you want things to change, you have to change the things you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep the exact same my shade and gender, middle aged people running every aspect of what we're doing, and we're hitting crisis after crisis,
Yeah.
should we maybe look to players like Kayla and Tabitha
Mm-hmm.
Bull and Carol Ann Hilton, Sabrina over at Farah International? That's leadership. Gender, race, age be damned.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
make good decisions, and you can see it in the quarterly reports. So it's not just a feel good or let's shoulder tap and be equal. It's no, when someone's smart and capable at a job,
Mm-hmm.
they should be doing the damn job. So,
Yeah, I know. Seems obvious, doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
you'd
yeah.
think.
Mm-hmm.
I,
I'm sure there are times that you bump up against challenges that you don't foresee, and it's discouraging. How do you how do you get through those spaces? Like, do you support each other? Do you like what's your process to push through?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we've been facing trying to bring modular into the region is having the policies and the existing um, bylaws and everything, and trying to work with them
Mm-hmm.
so that we can actually put these houses into the backyards has been one of the biggest challenges we've been facing. So we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. We're reaching out. We're knowledge sharers, but we're also knowledge seekers. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of circles and discussions. So we're really trying to think bigger picture and include everyone in the conversation, because someone could throw us an idea that we had not thought of before, and it
Mm-hmm.
helps us
Mm-hmm.
to move in different ways, and connects us to people that we would not have connected with otherwise. So I think that's kind of been our biggest challenge, is just navigating all these systems.
yep.
And it really is a systemic barrier, once again, that we face
Yeah.
as a modular company trying to
Mm-hmm.
bring modular to the region.
Well, I'd say
Yeah.
you dealing with that culturally in
Yeah.
terms of things just being set up to ensure even if you comply, you fail. It's probably given you an edge in terms of business problems.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's regulatory barriers. Yes, absolutely. I think it's lack of due diligence and hard work, but that's just my personal opinion. For example, OBC interpretations in municipality to municipality, fair enough. What I was taught in most of my education is when you make a change to something and there are other documents involved, you're to go through line by line and assess where there's conflict. We're not seeing that. And that's why every blanket rule, new initiative that gets released, it only has to hit one or two side attempts before it will completely fail because it's missing what the issues are. I think
Mm-hmm.
in avoiding getting the paperwork done properly and stage by stage. It's been more time PR driven promises than that. But then it spends more time and effort for like some of the brilliant people working in building departments here trying to process a damn permit. They look at their own stuff and they're like, well, no, you have to do it this way. You say, well, no other type of build does, and it's not physically possible to do that in the reality we live in. And it's usually just a contradiction between a OBC interpretation and a bylaw. In some cases, bylaws that were written by people that died 50 years ago. So there's a lot of that disruption going on. It's not the entirety of the issue, but there's layers upon layers, I'd say. I mean, if anyone's interested in, well, why have calls not been made to resolve a problem, I always ignore words, look at facts and actions. There are online resources to check how much the decision makers in your area have in the way of rental properties. A lot of them, it's 80% of what they earn in a year. They can promise to change something. They can have a title that says it's their job to change it.
Yeah.
But if you knew no consequence was coming and you were making a lot of money and security off something, would you really go out of your way to make a difference? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to spiral into barriers, though. I think for us, it's about celebrating. We have a unit, it's fully permitted. The price on it is record breaking.
Yeah.
And
Is there a ballpark, or how does it work? What is the price?
So for a single dwelling unit, we're keeping them capped at 135,000 as long as we can. And that's the goal always in terms of the ADUs. We're trying to actually just make enough that we can sustain and grow, but the growth is coming from effort, not farming.
Okay.
And our industry's gotten bad for that. There will be a plethora of people on salaries doing jobs that really half their numbers could be handling. And then you've got a minimal amount of people with tool belts on actually getting the work done. We've been trending that way as an industry for quite some time now. And it's convenience is good, but we all pay for it. And there's a lot of pride in both roles. But I think the accountability has gotten less and less on the admin side of the industry, and the pay's gone up and up. And that's a big problem. So we don't have that element with us. And that's kept our prices where people can't compete. They could, but they'd have to change how much they're earning and what their status is, that sort of.
I want to applaud both of you, not just for the taking a dream and following it and having beautiful motivation for it and basing it on values. The thing that I think that really impresses me is when you persist through challenges that are needless. Like those challenges, to me, those are the things that frustrate me when something shouldn't be a challenge, but it is. Like challenges, like whatever, something goes wrong when you're building something, or you have to, problem solve. Great. Those are challenges, but you find a way, right? A little bit more sweat, a little bit more brain. But when you are bumping up against issues that don't need to be, we could say shouldn't be, well done. Well done for honestly persisting through those things. Those are the things that wear you down mentally and emotionally. And so, good job for staying the course, keeping your eyes on your vision, your mission, your values, to not be deterred by those things. I think that is a huge difference with those who make it and those who don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone's completely capable of it. And I love what you're touching on there, though, because when you're in that state, that's when you need to try the hardest. I hate this. I don't want to do it.
Great. Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah, so
it's not right. It's not fair.
And then look for the next thing that you would hate to do, because there's good odds it's going to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a lot of, like, we cheat a little. We've got some motivation there. Oh, hang on. I mean, yeah, whenever it's getting too much, we get to look at these little things. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
worthwhile.
beautiful. Yes. No, but that's amazing. Yes, keep your eyes on those things, right?
You
Yeah.
have to.
What is
Just
Yeah.
what
what
is this
else is the
about?
point?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, even if it's not your own kids,
Yeah.
consider everybody else's. It's good
Yes.
motivation. Or
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't like kids, so be it. Consider who's gonna wipe your butt when you're 90 years old on
Yeah.
gravestone.
Right, on a
Either
practical
way, here,
level.
the
Absolutely.
cost of not
Mm,
doing your
mm-hmm.
full capability now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's a lot higher than the
Mm,
pain you go through
mm-hmm.
pushing for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
So
I am grateful that you guys carved out of your schedule to come and talk with me. Let me get to know you. Let our viewers, listeners get to know you a bit and the amazing work that you're doing. I find it fascinating. So, where is the best place for people to find you if they're curious to know more about it? Where should they go?
yes, so we're based at. Am I allowed to do addresses on this sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
at 1030 Colburn Street West out in Brantford,
Okay.
so
Mm-hmm.
Brantford area.
Mm-hmm.
We're always happy to connect and host tours. We're very, very busy, but
Uh-huh. Well, thank you again. I know I'm hoping to actually come out and visit you on site. I'd love to see, yeah, in person.